Hi, Jeff Smith, Baltimore School District. You just mentioned something about language and it may not map easily to school.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little bit? We have a lot of Spanish-speaking students in Arizona and other countries.
Right. I think you probably read that on that slide with the Venn diagram, that there are certain risk factors associated with children who grow up in poverty and children who may come from households where English is not the language of instruction and who enter school and English is the language of instruction. The home language, whether it's English or in this case Spanish, doesn't always lend itself easily to the language that the sixth grader is up against in text. So that is to say that we don't speak necessarily the way the textbook authors and other authors are writing these days. And the gap between our daily language, even among those of us who are educated, and the language of print is on the rise. It's increasing year to year. And I just saw recently some really nice data that suggests we just continue to write and to demand an academic register of language that is very distant in many cases from the language that our children are using day to day. And so in that sense, it puts onto the system the need to really teach and unpack the language that is being used in print that is giving kids a really hard time. If we go back to those data in all of the studies that we're doing, I should be very clear that our students have very well-developed day-to-day conversational English. Both our native English speakers and our students who might be considered English language learners or former English language learners. Their difficulties are when they are reading independently and having to learn from text in order to do their work independently, that they just don't have enough to bring to that printed page. Does that make sense? So we are getting this gap that's, even you and the article that I was reading suggested the newspaper still, even though everyone's complaining about newspapers and the language today and the rags that they are, they're using about 70 academic words per 100, and we are using about 17 per 100 when we speak to one another, right? We're speaking less, our sentences are shorter, our communication is just not as academic, and it used to be that it was much more closely mapping on to print than it is today. And some of the college and career ready standards are pushing on that idea, that we need just more complex language in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms. Yeah.
Hi, Elizabeth Hine, Arizona State University. You kind of alluded to this, but I'm wondering, in your research or in your travels, have you found any insights about what the content areas, social studies, science, and even the arts play in early literacy development?
If we could bring much more content-rich material into our preschools, we would be better off. So some of the best findings right now, some of the latest, probably the strongest study of preschool effects has recently just come out of the Boston Public Schools, suggesting just gains that hold over time that give kids a true edge, not just a short-term bump. That curriculum that they use in their high-quality 4-year-old pre-K classrooms is entirely science-based. So their literacy curriculum itself is science-based. Why? Because you can set up the classroom beautifully. You can have all kinds of hands-on learning that is not about reading words on the page, right, and pushing just on print, but you can study some abstract concepts and start to see them come to life. So we can be outside studying, we can have one unit that spans all of the learning centers in our classroom, but we also end up using the language that goes with science, right? That's not conversational day-to-day language. So while we have tended with young children towards our community and our neighborhood and some very friendly conversational language, and we label the classroom, the table, and the chair, what we really ought to be doing is just more in still very developmentally appropriate, friendly ways, bringing much more content to bear. Some of our work in dramatic arts has real potential at the early childhood level. Yeah. 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 Not at all. Thank you.